Juden, Freimaurer, Rüstungsfabrikanten, Kriegsgewinner, internationale Händler, Börsenjobber fanden politische Subjekte des Parados und Herostratenaturen, die den Krieg als das Ersehnens und damit wünschenswerte hinstellten.
Diese Verschwörung von Demokraten, Juden und Freimaurern hat es damals fertiggebracht, vor 2 Jahren zunächst Europa in den Krieg zu stürzen.
Das Dogma von Menschengleichheit hatte den gesunden Instinkt des Volkes getrübt. Mehrhundertjährige religiöse Erziehung hatte die europäischen Christen gelehrt, in dem Juden einen Volksgenossen des Stifters der christlichen Religion zu sehen. Hochherzige deutsche Künstler und Dichter hatten ihre Idealvorstellungen in die biblischen Gestalten der hebräischen Stammesgeschichte hineingelegt. Ausgerechnet dieser Abraham, Isaak und Jakob galten als Träger einer besonders hohen Moral und als Idealbilder edelsten Menschentums. Wir haben inzwischen sehen gelernt und wissen jetzt, dass die Hebräer der biblischen Geschichte so nicht ausgesehen haben können. Wir müssen unser Geschichtsbild korrigieren.
Nazis, World War II Time Life books. It was published by Robert Edwin Herstein, a Khazar Ashkenazi Jew, which that means he's not a bloodline descendant of Abraham, but he is a convert to Judaism. In page 132 of this book is some interesting notes. This shows a diagram showing that the Germans actually knew that the Jews were black. Right here, Hitler and Goebbels, his minister of propaganda, is watching an instructional film. Orientalen in German means Middle Eastern. That's a black man. Neged means royal or royalty. Borten Aftain, North African. Hamites. And this guy is called Khazar or Khazar Ashkenazi, which is not even of the Semitic tribes. They're Japhite or Japhetic. They come from the Caucasus region of Gog, the land of Gog, or Magog. Genesis chapter 10. On top of that, the Nazis actually had SS soldiers that were black. These are the forces, Arabic forces, the emblems. It's a black man. Look at the logo on the top. Arabic forces. Here is another soldier, Nazi, welcomed home. Here's a member of the Wehrmacht, Special Forces, commando of the Wehrmacht. That's a black man. Here's an interesting one also. Surrounded by white Nazis, the real ones, not the fake ones from America. Look at the background, look at the Nazi. This is Bremen, Germany. Nazis. Everything you've been taught was a lie.
Jews, but over who actually was a Jew.
In their articles on Khazars, the Jewish encyclopedias tell us that in the 8th century AD, Jewish missionaries ventured north of Babylon to the land of the Khazars between the Caspian and the Black Seas. Khazaria was a vast grassland on what is now the plains of southern Russia. About 740 AD, the king of the Khazars converted to Judaism and made it the state religion. Incredibly, within a few centuries, the people of Khazaria convinced themselves that they were not Gentiles after all, but the physical descendants of Abraham. Thus, by the 10th century AD, a nation of proselyte Jews thrived in what is now central Russia. During the Middle Ages, the fierce Mongols from the east and Russians from the north drove the Khazars west out of their ancient homeland. Most settled in Eastern Europe, especially Poland. Judaism thus became divided into two basic groups which remain today. The Ashkenazim, which are the Khazars of the east. Today, the Ashkenazim, or Khazars, are the vast majority, about 80% of those who call themselves Jews.
It's a very serious scenario. Is in Africa. Africa has perhaps hundreds of millions of people with this identity right now of being from the people of Israel. That when the Romans conquered Judea a few hundred years after that the tribes of Israel went into exile, perhaps millions of Judeans were sold into slavery, into Africa, into Rome, deep into Africa. And if you look now, you're seeing people who are most likely the descendants of those slaves who kept true. I like to bring up a few specific examples because they're going to be game changers. One of them wrote letters to Israel when it became a state, and they said, we're Israelites out in Africa. You know, everyone laughed at them, and they said, African Israelites, these people are just trying to jump on the first world country bandwagon. And everyone kind of laughed at them, like I said, and a few people took it serious and went out there and started studying them. A professor from Duke University went out there and did DNA testing on them. And he showed not only do they share Semitic genes from people who were in Yemen and back to the Middle East, these gentlemen, a large percent of them, have the Y chromosome to be Kohanim, to be priests. And anyone descended from Aaron has the status title priest. And we found that these men in this village in South Africa called Lemba, L-E-M-B-A, carry this genetic marker to let us know that they share the same as from the Sephardic. Today they share the same exact DNA marker. That's mind-blowing. So everyone kind of got humbled a little bit who laughed at them and said, now what? Now what do we do about this? This could have tremendous implications. Another area in Africa you have something big happening is in Nigeria. You have the Igbo people, or Igbo, pronounced either way. There's 40 million of them. And where it gets interesting is, in America, there was a slave trade. And a lot of the slaves, a very high percentage of them, came from Western Nigerian ports. And in America today, you see a very large movement of African Americans who say that they're the real chosen people, that they're the children of Israel, they're the Judeans. You know, so what are they just trying to create an identity for themselves because they were slaves, or is there really something here? And the answer is most likely there is something there. And most likely maybe that they were the original Israelites, and maybe that the Jewish people today who are white Caucasian people came in a little bit later on.
There's a true people of the Most High that is scattered throughout the nations of the earth this day. It is not whom that many people believe they are, such as the so-called Jews in the nation-state of Israel that we so see before us right now. It is very important that you understand who the true Hebrews are, because that end-time prophecy, lots of it, surround these individuals. In the early pictures that you would see depicted in worship places, churches, and things of this nature, as you can see right here in this image right here, that Messiah was depicted as a black person.
So, this is 15th century manuscripts. Sometimes, you know, it's amazing that, you know, people in the 15th century, were they, you know, aware of color? All the saints, even the Virgin, is painted black, you know. Today, even today, you don't find such paintings in churches, in always, you know, a bright color, not black color. So it has to be studied very well, you know, this type of documents.
Hey guys, the gig is up. I'm not the real Jesus. As a matter of fact, the fella's name wasn't even Jesus. He had a Hebrew name. There wasn't a letter J until a few hundred years ago. With that being said, I have fooled the whole world into the biggest sham of all time. The name and identity of the real fella has been taken over by me. There are thousands of paintings of Jesus, and they don't even come close. Jesus was the creation of the Roman Catholic Church, which served to replace the real fella, who probably looked more like Morgan Freeman. But who cares? The truth doesn't matter, as long as you pay your tithes.
Angel of light and his ministers are disguised as ministers of justice. And the scripture warns about this deception that's going to come through the Christian religion. This represents the son of perdition because it's really antichrist or imitation. As from the Greek, the word anti can mean instead of or in place of. So when people think of this antichrist, that it's going to be this evil demon, so he has to do it by deceiving and coming on as this good guy, and that's where this disguising, Satan disguising as an angel of light, that's how that comes in. This is instead of Christ, in place of Christ. And not only the image, but even down to the name, where it's only in modern English that we have the name Jesus. A couple of hundred years ago, that name never existed. And so that people, by accepting this false imagery, they've already accepted the Antichrist.